Hello, and welcome to Retention Chronicles, the customer retention podcast for e-commerce marketers. I am your host and fellow e-com marketer, Mariah Parsons. Tune in as I speak with D2C founders and operators about strategy that works and strategy that doesn't. Of course, we are able to have these conversations because of our podcast sponsor, Malomo. I have seen thousands of brand operators power their order tracking with Malomo to make every single message count. As a consumer, I personally have come to expect that brands have a phenomenal post-purchase experience, or else I'm not really shopping with them again. And a lot of consumers are this way. 84% of shoppers won't return if they have a bad shipping experience. And it feels so important for e-commerce brands to have a good pre-purchase experience. You're trying to get that acquisition. Your customers are coming through the door. They're coming through your website. It is a very personalized experience. You have pop-ups that are timed well. You have customer testimonials that are easing fears. You have well-timed cart abandonment emails, all of that stuff. And then you purchase with a brand, and sometimes there's no communication, and it leaves you wondering, it leaves you mad, maybe scared that you fell for a scam or something like that. And so I think it is such a smart decision to have your transactional shipping emails and SMS not just be about only business. Malomo helps turn them into a powerful marketing tool. What does that look like? It means you can cross-sell other products on that branded order tracking page. You can put educational content on that page. So if you have something that consumers will have to learn how to use for the first time, you can put that there. If you have recipes that they could, use your product for when they first get it, you can put that there. Your social media, everything, frequently asked questions, whatever you want, you get the control back so that you're not sending your customers to a carrier tracking page. You're putting them right back on your website, and you're also keeping them informed about their order status while you do it. That's the beautiful thing about this platform. If you're ready to turn your order notifications into a marketing channel and join thousands of e-commerce brand operators in making their customers happier while also adding to your brand's profits, visit gomalomo.com. That's GOMALOMO.com. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Retention Chronicles. Super excited for our episode here today. Larry, thank you for joining me. It's going to be a great show. And I am always so honored that people make the time to come on and just tell me about what they're focusing their time on. So let's start off with a quick intro. Tell our audience who you are and how you've gotten to sit in this seat today.
Awesome. Thanks, Mariah. And it's great to be here. My name is Larry Kim. I am the founder and CEO of customers.ai. We are on a mission to bring data quality and accuracy and transparency to the website visitor ID industry. Prior to this, I was also known as the founder and CEO of WordStream, which was a pay-per-click advertising platform used by over 1 million people, and was acquired by Gannett in 2018 for about almost $200 million.
If you had to say high level how you grew your previous company to a point, tens of thousands, what really was the thing that got you to have so many users on your platform? Can you narrow it down to like one thing?
Sure. If I had to pick one thing, it would be search engine optimization. I mean, this was over a decade ago, and it was easier to do that at the time. But at exit, the company was doing something like 3 to 4 million website visitors per month. So that's a lot of free traffic.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah. And, those 3 to 4 million would become like leads to follow up on, that we could send to over 100 account execs to run down. So it's harder to do that now because, and plus I feel like search is kind of in the heyday of searches right now. I personally just use ChatGPT and stuff like that. But that was the one big hack at the time.
Yep. Makes sense. I mean, it was, we'll call it newer than it is now, right? So that makes sense. But I think that's what a lot of people will still see with like AI, like language processors, right? Of like, you can get in on the heyday, then you'll see a big surge from it and all that stuff. So that totally makes sense. Okay. So tell us a little bit more in detail about customers. So tell us more about Customers AI. Give us, a couple of minutes of background, what made you kind of get into the space, and then what's really piquing your interest about why people should care about, obviously, identifying their website users. I think a lot of our audience will know why they should care, but it's always fun to hear what people say in response to that question.
The story is that a couple of years ago, we learned more about the technology, and it was very compelling. It was very exciting, and we had some proprietary data of our own, and we licensed various third-party data and combined it into a product, and we thought it was really, really awesome. Initially, I thought it was like, this is visitor identification is like, what they're promising is spectacular. Get to know who is on your website before they fill out a form. That's quite powerful. And there were signs that it was working, because we could see that, we'd look at our list of customers that we were, of emails that we were providing, and comparing that with orders, and 1% or something would match up to orders. And that was promising. We'd see revenue. It didn't quite add up completely. Like, we were seeing like lower conversion rates than what we would expect. This is like low funnel. Like, these are people who've heard of you. They're supposed to be on your website list. So like, couldn't quite figure out like why the conversion rate was low, and also spam complaints and other secondary negative engagement was problematic. And so we just did a lot of work on this and figured out that the underlying data sources that this particular industry uses to power these motions is garbage. It's mostly like advertising data and something called co-registration network data, which, there are use cases for this stuff. Like, maybe you could use it for Facebook advertising or something like this, but like, it was not meant to be so pinpoint accurate down to, an individual. Typically what we found was that the accuracy rate for this kind of website visitor ID technology that's being used by every single vendor in the space is accurate to 5% on the low end, and the highest we've ever seen is around 30%. So meaning it's wrong, 70 to 95% of the time, which is problematic if you care about your brand and your deliverability and stuff like this. So we've spent the last 2 years really trying to think through that problem and trying to do that difficult engineering of building like a new identity graph that is specifically designed for person level identification, and like something that would have like, nothing is 100%, but like, could it be mostly right rather than mostly wrong? So like, 70, 80, 90% correct rather than 70, 80, 90% wrong. And that's sort of what we've been working on. And we released our study results and case studies earlier last month, and it's been quite an exciting ride.
Yeah, awesome. That's great context. So this is one of the things that I, as a marketer, am not familiar in, and this is why it's fun for me to come on this podcast and have someone like you who's very, very much an expert in trying to crack this code and make, majority of website visitors accurate. So high level, can you explain how, like, I know you said majority of the sources that other platforms who are trying to identify website visitors are using that data, and it's like dirty or quote unquote wrong or whatever. So how do you start to get like the correct information? Like, where do you pull from? Is it like, if it's not ads, then where else are you pulling those emails from to try and match who website visitors are?
So the place that this whole industry, including us, by the way, over 2 years ago, we were just using the same data as everyone else. We were using stuff like publisher data. So that's stuff like where somebody logs in to some website, and there's some identification that happens there where you log into a website. They say like sign in for the free article or something like that. And the trick is that they then fingerprint your browser or your device characteristics of that device, and they'll associate that device with the login that you just provided. This is notoriously really low quality stuff. It's a throwaway emails, and sometimes you'll just put in anything in there to get rid of the pop-up. So that's like one source of really, really bad data. Another one is co-registration networks. This could be like a payday loan site where it's just affiliate marketers just trying to drive people to sign up for a payday loan or something like this. And then once that form gets filled, it gets cookied like 100 times. And then that data gets sent to all these like loan vendors and resold. And the problem with this data is that it's just very susceptible to fraud. So like bots, all sorts of other junk. And so, that's kind of the genesis of the data that is being used to power these visitor identification use cases. I think that the original use case for these data sources were to power advertising. So like, you could, get all the IDs for people, who are interested in, maybe it was a cooking website, or maybe it was people who are interested in loans. You could kind of aggregate that, and in aggregate. So like if you had, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of these or millions of these signals, then 20% accuracy it kind of works okay for, let's say, display advertising, because at least you have some signal rather than no signal to use. I don't think it was ever meant to power individual level like person ID, and therein that was the crux of the discovery that we made. And in terms of how we fixed it, it was pretty difficult. We had to throw out the whole thing and basically start from scratch with new data sources, new signals, new algorithms, new identifiers, and build this whole thing from scratch. It's almost like becoming those next version of those data vendors that everyone else was buying stuff from.
Okay, gotcha. That's a very helpful context. So you brought with you today a report that you all have run on kind of the like industry report of how we're doing with website visitor identification, just to tell us more about, a thought leader like you in the space, what you're thinking about, what trends are catching your eye, what brands in the Shopify space should look out for when they're trying to obviously acquire more customers, give those customers a great experience on their site. So let's go there now and have you kind of walk through your findings in that report, because I think our audience will love that.
Sure. The punchline of this report is quite shocking. You buy these, if you're a brand, you're buying this website visitor ID tech, which, it's pretty popular. I think it's hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue annually. But like, as advertised, they're saying that they are providing you with accurate identification of website visitors. Unfortunately, the reality of that is mixed. It's not 100% wrong, but it's mostly wrong. It's 70, 80, 90, 95% wrong. Anywhere from 5 to 30% correct is what we're seeing on average. And so I just think it's pretty crazy, because if you guys identify yourself as the logistics and order, like, what do you call it?
Tracking.
Order
like
tracking.
Branded order tracking. Yep,
Yeah,
from Alomo.
so you have one job. You need to reliably convey the status of the orders. Imagine if you were sending out like phony updates about like it was delivered when it wasn't, or
that would be quite problematic. Yeah, it needs to be very clean data.
These website visitor ID companies, it's like they have one job. It's to identify the website visitor, accurately, and they are failing to do this, 19 times out of 20. And brands are being duped by, I can explain it. Like, they see revenue, which makes sense because it's not all wrong. So you would expect some of these IDs to convert to sales, but I think like the reason why it grows this much is because there's revenue. But what people aren't looking is just looking a level deeper, and to see like, well, what is the collateral damage of this revenue? Like, how many bad emails did we send emails to? Like, what does this do for, brand safety and also, deliverability? But it's also a missed revenue opportunity. Like, if you are happy with an ID provider that's right 1 out of 20 times, imagine if it was like right, 14 or 15 times out of 20. Like, it just seems like there's more value that could be extracted from this channel. So the report, kind of went through a bunch of case studies of brands, and we outlined sort of a way for brands to do their own data tests. It's actually very easy, but people don't necessarily think about it. If I'm selling you leads of your website visitors, the question becomes like, well, how do I really know that, Joey Jojo at yahoo.com really visited my website? Like, how do I know? And it's actually not possible to know with full certainty, like, who are the people who really visit your website. But what you can do is you can do a test. And the test is to compare the guesses being provided by these website visitor identification products and compare it against a subset of traffic to your website where you know who that person already is. So
I see.
So generally, most of your traffic to your site is anonymous, but there's going to be like 5-10% of the traffic where you actually do know who it is. It's going to be the customers. And what you can do is if somebody purchases right at the second, then you have a high degree of certainty that it must be this person. And then what you can do is then compare, just look back a few seconds to like, who did the different ID providers identify as being the customer, and saying like, oh, well, this person said it was Jill, and this one said it was, Johnny or something like when really it was Sally who bought this thing. So like you can
like deductive reasoning, basically, like off the data you already have. Yes.
It's like a sample. You can get a sense for the accuracy of this data by looking at kind of a known sample, and then extrapolate to like, well, if they were wrong 90% on the kind of the people where we already knew who it was, it follows that they're probably 90% wrong on the people where we don't know who it is. That's how polling works. You don't actually, call every voter in America to, see who you're voting. You call 1,000 of them or something. I'm not saying the polling works 100%, but it's better that, it's plus or minus like, 3, 4, 5% or something that, it's giving you some idea. And, so we provided that methodology, and we ran that kind of test on various brands, and just showing that all these, it's just kind of a little fraudulent. All, what's happening here. They're companies buying junk leads and passing it off as being like your website visitors, and it's just it's a load of crap, unfortunately. We think we're better. We're not saying that this is 100%. Like they're saying that like this is like accurate, blah, blah, like they don't tell you like it's wrong 90% of the time. Like we're wrong, like 30+% of the time. But the point is that at least we can give you the highlights of what we believe it to be, and provide tools to allow vendors to make those assessments for themselves.
So the report mostly was like a comparison against the platforms in the space, rather than like trends for brands to look out for then?
So in terms of trends, I think that there are important trends, like the idea of brands making more of their first-party data. So like that to me rings true. Part of your first-party data collection includes your website visitors. And so understanding who those people are would fit into that trend of making more of your first-party data. The issue is that, you're not really making more out of your first-party data website visitors if the data it's being enriched to is wrong 95% of the time. But I think that you could make an argument that you are making more of your first-party data if you're enriching anonymous website visitors, first-party website visitors, to identities correctly, 70-75% of the time.
Okay.
Nothing is 100%, but like that's pretty good.
Yeah. Okay. So say a brand, because I want to get a little bit more tactical on like advice for brands who are listening to this podcast of, okay, say that a brand, has used a platform where they found out, okay, like 95% of this or 90% of this data has not been accurate, and we've been spamming people, and like it's tanked our email deliverability, and there's a lot of collateral for like brand reputation, or just really any of those. First of all, like, is there hope for that brand to recover, and where would they like first start out, and what would be like your recommendation there?
Sure. It's actually not too hard to recover. You just have to like cancel that subscription. The thing about a kind of email deliverability issues is it's not like crashing your car and getting like a demerit, where that demerit stays on your insurance for like 7 to 10 years. You know what I mean? Email penalties they're very bad, but they're shorter, they're more transient. You see what I'm saying? And oftentimes, the thing that's keeping you in the penalty box for deliverability purposes is that you just have a high spam complaint rate, as measured by how many spam complaints did you get in the last 24 hours or something like this, like according to Gmail or something. And it's remarkably easy to rectify the situation. It's to just stop using whatever product you're using that is giving you a 95% rate, and just stop emailing those and see what happens. And if the spam, logically, if you stop sending that, like that should meaningfully reduce the spam complaints. And in fact, that was one of the metrics that we looked at, where if you're sending emails from customers AI, like that we identified versus other vendors, like what we saw, like a reduction in spam complaints by 3 times. So, that's a meaningful percentage reduction of spam complaints. It's not like you can't get any spam complaints. They just want it to be, below 0.3%. So, the recommendation would just be to, stop using the product and see what that does to your kind of Postmaster tool delivery scores. And my guess is that it would improve. And then the next thing I would advocate for is, just because one vendor is screwing you, it doesn't mean they all are. I would try to get a handle on other vendors in the space and see what their accuracy is, especially if they have ways to help you quantify the error.
Yep. So email deliverability, that makes sense. You can kind of rectify, you can recover it. I know there's also a lot of agencies who work in email deliverability, making sure that it's, everything is tip-top shape, and that you're not getting constant spam, not requests. What's the word I'm looking for? Anyway,
complaints.
Complaints. Thank you. Yes. Then I think the harder thing is if it damages your brand's reputation, right? Like if it starts to be something on the internet where people are, upset about it, or social media, brand safety, or like not buying with you because you pissed off certain people, all that stuff. So do you think that's really an issue, or not as much as like the more technical side of email deliverability?
Often these things go hand in hand. Like the use of these products deteriorates email deliverability. And so it's kind of weird in a weird way. Like these wrong emails that you're sending, they have low visibility. So they'll just end up in spam. So, it's certainly possible that could be causing brand issues. It's quite pernicious. It's like it compounds. It's not like it will destroy your brand instantaneously, but rather it's like just eating something really bad, like toxic waste, but in small quantities, every day for day after day after day. Eventually you'll get sick. And I think, in terms of mitigating that kind of damage, I think it's, you have to be thinking long term, not just short term, and then just thinking about like holistically about the whole channel and what you should be doing here. There's certainly ways to kind of have your cake and eat it too, where you can have the advantage of emailing people that haven't opted in, but minimizing the error. Like you could, for example, Mariah, you could instead of sending them an email, you could send those emails into a Facebook remarketing campaign. And then if one of those people who you sent into the Facebook remarketing campaign clicks on a Facebook ad and comes back, at that point, you could email them. You see something like you could put some kind of a bar that they need to cross of engagement or intent before emailing them. Or you could set some delays, like 3 pages viewed and 2 minutes on site. Just trying to make it like if we're going to email these people, let it be for people where the commercial intent is high, and they're likely to appreciate a follow-up as opposed to be resentful for it. So
yeah, I think that's a great point to kind of add that, like, barrier of entry, basically, of before we email you, see how you're interacting with our brand. And that actually brings up a great point, because legally speaking, so like on the Malomo side of things with branded order tracking, we're in the transactional email space, right? So there's more regulations around transactional emails. There obviously has to have a transaction that occurred. And those emails are extremely important because people want to know, I spent my money on this. Where's the order? But on the marketing side of things, obviously you have to have someone opt into your email. So that's, I guess, in my head where I'm like, as a consumer, how is that? And like, I know buying the data and getting all of like permission somewhere in there, like permission was given somewhere along the way to market to them. But can you explain that a little bit more in depth? Because I like that, to me, is like, okay, that's where the, I guess, a little bit of worry on the brand side would come into play of, okay, I'm emailing a bunch of these people. Let's just say like they're all correct just for this use case. And then people being like, how did you get my email? I never signed up for your email. I didn't opt in. Is there like any legal issues there?
There's certainly various legal structures that you as a marketer or brand manager need to understand. The law of the land for the United States of America is at a federal level, it can't spam, and that's almost 20-year-old piece of legislation. It only has six stipulations. It's like you have to clearly identify who's sending the email. You have to include the mailing address and contact information of who's, of the sender. The most important thing is you have to provide a simple way to opt out of receiving emails, and you have to process and honor those opt-outs in a timely way. So that's canned spam sounds like something about it almost sounds like something related to requiring or some kind of opt-in or something. But it's really about clear identification of who's sending the email and providing a mechanism for it. I can explain why that is. It's because it's United States of America, and they have the First Amendment. So the government should not pass any law that in any way restricts the right to free speech. So that's pretty straightforward. The answer is to, if somebody unsubscribes or requests to opt out, you need to honor that immediately and not make it difficult for them to get out of it. Okay. In fact, it's a gift. If somebody tells you that they're not interested, that's so much better than having them register a complaint with Gmail, which counts against you as a strike. Okay. So emphatically, yes, you should do this, and we require that our customers do this. There are other laws in the United States, and other state-specific things. And I would describe those laws as being a little bit more kind of persnickety around the areas of being able to opt out of the network, or to be able to see what information that they have on you. So these are all important things for sure, but it doesn't make anything we're doing illegal. Basically, in general, the antidote to a lot of this regulation is disclosure. So and some websites they're pretty in your face about it. They'll pop up a thing that says this website is using marketing trackers, blah, blah, blah. It'll make you accept or reject those terms. So that's kind of a more in your face kind of disclosure. And minimum, the website should disclose the use of marketing trackers in the website terms of use. It has to do with being transparent about the use of this technology and not just secretly using it and not telling anyone. Once you say you're using it and you say what it is and that it's optional, you can opt out of it, that inoculates most of the regulations.
Okay. Yeah, that all makes sense. And that's the, from the seat that I sit in, where it's okay, the general things, but then when you're actually in a technology that uses that, or you're sitting in that same band of technology where it's okay, we really got to know what is, how we can use that data to do what we're trying to do. It is very interesting to have you kind of walk through it all. And I'm going to round us out here in a few minutes for this episode. But is there anything else in that report that, you haven't gotten to share that is kind of a heads up to brands, or brands you should consider looking into this if you're experiencing XYZ challenges? Is there anything else that you'd like to share with our audience here today?
Just that if you're using this kind of visitor ID tech, and if you don't know what the accuracy is, because they don't typically advertise it, it's like a black box. There are ways to get insights into the accuracy or lack of accuracy of that data, and we'd love to work with you to kind of uncover, what's in there.
Okay, awesome. Love it. Well, thank you, Larry. This has been great having you on the show. And I'm very excited for this episode to be live and for our audience to hear what you have to say and learn more about visitor identification, because it is definitely a black box sometimes. So it's always fun to kind of unwind it a little bit more.
Thanks, Mariah.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. These conversations bring so much knowledge to the table, and I'm so grateful for that. If you haven't already, please subscribe, follow us on social media, and tell us who our next guest should be on our website. Let's give another shout out to our day one sponsor, Malomo. As you know, Malomo is an order tracking platform that enables Shopify brands to take control of their transactional email and SMS through branded order tracking pages. That means you can ditch those boring all white carrier pages. The ones I'm talking about. Everyone has seen an ugly tracking page in their life. And you can swap it with a page that matches your brand. Customers like you and I obsessively check order tracking an average of 4.6 times per order. That's why leading Shopify brands are turning that engagement into customer loyalty and revenue through branded order tracking. Learn more about how to get ahead of shipping issues, brand your order tracking experience, and reconvert customers while they wait for their package to arrive with Malomo. Visit gomaloma.com. That's GOMALOMO.com.